back to another episode of Beating Alpha. We have an episode 144, and we have a very, very special guest on. Her name is Corinn Altomare. So she's a classically trained musician turned real estate investor. She spent 13 years in music, 5 years in IT project management, and 8 years in multifamily real estate, where she developed the property management and syndication functions of her company, Hearthfire Holdings. And of course, you can find more information about her company and what Corinn is working on currently. And the website is hfireholdings.com. That's hfireholdings.com. And of course, the link for that is going to be below. And her company recently acquired through syndication a self-storage facility, diversifying the company's portfolio of commercial and residential multifamily properties in the Philadelphia MSA. So Hearthfire Holdings is actively acquiring additional self-storage portfolios as well. And of course, do recommend to get in contact with Corinn on a personal level, which is going to be LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and all those links are going to be down below for you to follow. So Corinn, just want to say a big thank you for joining me today on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's always great to connect with the people like yourself, talk about, again, as we spoke about, before the interview, giving the different options for people to invest, actively, passively, start their own personal business. So again, multifamily and storage units, right? So that's going to be the main kind of conversation that we can talk about. But, can we come back to your beginning stages? And again, as I mentioned before we started recording, you're a trained musician, and you did that for 13 years and 5 years in IT project management. So maybe you can take us back to that time and just go through that and explain how did you transition in real estate investing?
And how in the world did I get to real estate from there? Yeah, exactly. So I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I'm now in Philadelphia. So that in and of itself was a big move, going from West to East Coast in the US. But I have to credit my parents. They're both entrepreneurs themselves. And so I grew up in certainly a more open-minded kind of family dynamic. My father had a law practice, and my mother ran a Montessori preschool. So I grew up around the family business, in the family business. I started working for my father in his office very young. And my parents also had a residential real estate portfolio. So I have very early memories of helping my mother at turnovers, steam cleaning the window hangings and things like that. So that was always a little bit in the background, but a passion of mine was music. I went to private Catholic all-girls school growing up. I started cantering in the church very, very young, and wanted to pursue that. And my parents, in their wonderfulness, allowed me to do that and go for it and make my own mistakes along the way, figure things out, and always working in the family business on the evenings and weekends to have a different resume to accompany my artistic resume as well, right? Because we all know that the arts don't really pay the bills that well, unless you're one of the very, very, very lucky few to make it to the top 0.01%. So it was going through those motions of pursuing my artistic career, and I discovered and fell in love with opera, and knew nothing about it growing up. I grew up on rock and roll and jazz, and so really just stumbled across opera, fell in love with it, threw myself all into pursuing that, and that took me through college. It took me through my high school years, because I went to a performing arts high school, and then undergrad and master's. It took me through a few young artist programs. I did a couple summer stints in Europe, and then kind of traveling the US. And it was ultimately an opera contract that brought me to Philadelphia. And it was my other resume of working in my father's law office. And I also worked and ran his law office during my college years. I was one of those kids who moved back home in between. I took a gap year in between undergrad and master's in order to just work full time and get out of college without any debt. And so while I was doing that, I lived at home and I worked with my father full time. And it was that resume that when I moved cross country to Philly on a music contract, I also was able to get a job, which was in IT project management, which kind of led to the next pivot in my life. So I moved across country, experienced Northeast winter, was renting a terrible, terrible basement apartment in South Philly where the heat didn't work and we had black mold in the bathroom. So that was my first exposure really as a renter in a new city. And then became a W-2 employee working in IT project management. And as soon as I had a W-2, I knew I could go and use bank money to buy an investment property. And having grown up with my parents having residential real estate, knowing the kind of just financial foundation that provides for one to pursue the rest of their lives, either passions, if those don't meet all of your lifestyle goals or financial commitments, or just taking off a little bit of the financial pressure. So instead of buying a home, I bought a triplex with 2 tenants in place who helped me pay the mortgage and a little bit extra. And then the next year I bought with my then boyfriend, now husband and business partner, another triplex. And then we bought a house and converted his previous home into a rental. So within 2 years of knowing one another, we had 4 properties to our names that we were living in one and then managing the 3 rentals with 7 sets of tenants between them. So that was my first 2 years. And then we discovered syndication and wanting to bring in the rest of our family and friends to share in the cash flow and all the wonderful benefits of investing in multifamily. So we started doing that in 2014, and we bought 4 sets of, I'm just looking at my notes because there's been so much that's happened in 10 years. We ended up buying 5 properties within those first 2 years with our family and friends. Those were, again, smaller multifamily. And my husband and I were we married at this point? We were just married at this point. And so we were still in our full-time W-2 jobs, and we were doing the property management and all of because our investors were limited partners. We always served as the GPs. So we did the day-to-day operations, overseeing those properties, and just, gave our investors K-1s at the end of the year, gave them their quarterly disbursements. We were doing all of that as our side hustle, evenings and weekends. And then after a couple more years of continuing to acquire that, I think I completely skipped over answering your question about how I got from music to real estate. I'm sorry. Let me pause.
No, that's perfectly fine.
That's kind of how I got there. That's how I got started.
You covered it. You definitely covered it. So no worries for that. So again, the question that I wanted to ask you, again, for the couples who are watching, maybe you have a kind of recipe when it comes to running day-to-day operations and making sure that you don't kill yourself, you don't kill each other, when you're running the business and building a business. Is there some, tips or strategies that you will give for the couples?
Oh, I am very lucky that he and we work really well together. We're complete opposites. He is ones and zeros. He is a hardcore IT person. He spent 22 years working in IT for the Federal Reserve, started his way up from tearing machines apart and rebuilding them, and worked his way all the way up to 3rd from the top CIO. So I am not that person. I have a little bit more artistic tendencies. And so he and I complement one another really well in that we are just complete opposites. And so then between the 2 of us, we cover the many facets really that are required in day-to-day real estate investment and property management. I traditionally have done more of the front-facing tenant, like showings of apartments, being the front line for tenant communications, investor communications, because we've continued to grow now. And with our most recent self-storage facility last year, that involved 15 limited partners. So investor relations, tenant relations, coordinating the contractors, maintenance management, those were roles more that I inhabited, while Sergio did the underwriting, finding the deals, diving into the numbers, having the finance conversations with lenders, all of that sort of side of operations, if that helps answer the question. As far as how do we work together, I'm very conflict avoidant and he is very Italian. So we sometimes we have some very spirited conversations, and sometimes I need to take a step back for a day and gather my thoughts and write them down, and then come back and say, okay, well, this, and this, and this is what we need to talk about. But I mean, I think that's such a personal dynamic that we all work through, really. There is also a 9-year difference between the two of us. So there's a little bit of that at play as well. He is older, and his friends tell me that if I had met him even a year prior, things wouldn't have gone anywhere. So we met at the right time in our lives, I believe, where we were ready for this to happen. I was at that point in my music career, had really gone through the ringer as far as getting, it's a tough career, right? And really just getting beat up and needing a break and needing something different, needing someone different. And he was that, and it was the right time in my life. And I was done being youthful and selfish and all those sorts of things, and wanting to work towards something bigger with the right person. And he also was at the right point in his life as well, I think.
Got it. Good. So
Yeah.
I'm happy that it worked out for you. I mean, you're still working things out, and I do understand. Look, there's people who are watching, and those couples, and they don't have a business. I think they still going through kind of the same struggles, but your struggles are maybe, on a kind of different levels. Of course, there's a business that you have to manage, and you have to keep yourself accountable, and there's limited partners that you have to, again, provide the reports. You have to keep in touch with those people, so it keeps you always on your toes, and I think that's how you keep it going. So just having a purpose, basically, that's what I'm saying. That kind of aligned purpose with each other, and having a focus on that. It's
and navigating the egos, right? And
exactly.
Checking your ego at the door, because if it's work hours and we're talking about business, okay, this is not my husband and my lover talking to me. This is business, and knowing when and when not to take things personally, and when it's not about how certain things make me feel. We're at the end of the day attempting to accomplish something much larger, and so you got to check your ego at the door in order to get to that, continually get better, take feedback and criticism, incorporate that, acknowledge it, rather than holding yourself to be beyond reproach. I mean, we're always looking to improve and get better, and so being able to take that and to give that feedback, obviously, to your partner in such a way that they can receive it, but it also takes a partner who is in the right space to receive that as well. It's a two-way street. Absolutely.
Got it. So I have to ask kind of the selfish question too, because it's kind of, and I think it will benefit a lot of people. Again, coming back to the couples, like, because we both, like myself and my wife, we have businesses, same position as you guys are. So when do you go and, like, do you even shut it off? Like, sometimes do you just shut it down and, like, for a day or two and say no business talk, like, let's spend some quality time? How did you go about, like, kind of, your family life?
In the beginning, we really didn't. We both have workaholic tendencies. We do have a daughter now. She's 3.5. She was born in 2017, and that changed things. So before she came along, we had the flexibility to work all day at our day jobs and then work all night and weekends on our real estate empire. Now with her in the picture, we're realizing that she's only going to be this young and fun and challenging for so long, and then we're going to have to be balancing school and dealing with the preteen angst and all of that sort of fun thing that I'm not looking forward to at all. So she changed things for us, and we getting super personal. When my father-in-law passed suddenly, that was a shift for my husband. And at that point, we had the conversations of, okay, what are we working this hard for? I mean, yes, it's great to be doing all these syndications with our family and our best friends. Why are we doing this for ourselves? Is there something greater? And so that's where our daughter came into the plan. And so now in the day-to-day also, making more family time a commitment. It is something that we still struggle with, but we do have, I'm trying something new out. We have a 13-week essentially whiteboard calendar up in the kitchen, which is the heart of our home. And I have marked in there our, family adventures and making sure that we get a date night once a month, which is tough. And we missed last month. So we'll catch up next month. But making sure that we enjoy being outside, and there's so much beautiful country in and around Philadelphia. So we either go out for a day hike or a short weekend trip with our travel trailer somewhere. We'll go camping for a weekend, and we try to do that once a month. We're trying to get a one-on-one date night once a month. We usually end up talking about business on our date nights. I'll be honest, it's just the way that we're wired. Because we're also in such really interesting times, and Sergio is constantly thinking and researching new tactics, and so he wants to talk about those things, and we brainstorm and just see if any new business strategies really resonate with both of us if we want to go that direction. We're going to be going to Puerto Rico in 2 weeks because we are considering relocating ourselves down there to take advantage of some of those tax benefits. So those are some of the things that come out of our date nights. They're not necessarily uber personal, but they do shape our life. I hope that answered the question as far as balance. And so having a physical whiteboard up, I find helps, because if it's on the phone and I log into my phone to check our family calendar, I get distracted with all the other notifications. So I'm trying, and just the physical act of writing it and seeing it there as we go in and out of the kitchen for coffee, for food at the beginning and the end of the day, it's helpful to have that as a more tangible reminder of what we're tracking to.
Got it. So that's why I kept a note for myself. Same as you said, family adventures board, something to implement for our personal life as well. And I think for the people who are watching or listening to this episode, I mean, it's a great advice having that in front of you all the time instead of in the phone, because I do keep some of those kind of family things on a phone, which is like what you're saying, it makes sense more, keep it on a whiteboard. So again,
and it gives you something when you're in the middle of an incredibly tough work week or a series of weeks, and you need to be reminded about why you're pushing through. It's helpful to have that there as a future goal as well. It's like, okay, yeah, we're putting in 100-hour weeks for these next couple weeks because we're going to Puerto Rico for a week then, or we like going down to the Caribbean as well. I need to escape winter. So we generally go down to the Caribbean sometime in January, February, just for me to warm up a little bit and be able to survive the rest of wintertime. So it helps to get through the challenging work times as well, to have a larger goal that that you're working for, and that reignites your fires.
Here you go. And again, guys and girls who are listening to this episode so far, no, this is not the relationship podcast, but yes, it is important to kind of know the strategies and approaches when it comes to building a business together as a couple. And that's why I wanted to ask you that question. So moving on out to the real estate side, again, can you explain people, Philadelphia MSA, is that where the most of the deals are? And of course, we can talk about the self-storage as well. So if you can include multifamily and self-storage, and can you talk about the Philadelphia and I know it's kind of maybe a wide, question, but can you talk about Philadelphia MSA, or what makes Philadelphia different from the rest of the 49, states out there?
So because we take a very conservative approach, and because we are investing for our own future and our daughter's future as well, we haven't yet reached that comfort level of going out of state. I know plenty of people who do and who invest remotely, and I'm just not there yet. honestly. So we invest where we know, and we started in, I wouldn't invest in multifamily in Philadelphia right now. We're, in fact, I'm going to a closing. We're selling most of our multifamily portfolio. I have a closing on one a couple hours after our chat today. But when I started in 2012, with Philadelphia had 10-year tax abatements in place to encourage investing in the city. So all of our purchases, 2012 through 15, were came with 10-year tax abatements. They were all new development. We connected with a developer who was getting delinquent properties from the city and complete gut rehab. So we were getting all new everything with the 10-year tax abatements, and the numbers just could not be beat. And the properties never hit market. The developer knew that we had money. We essentially had, I hate to say it, but we had the South Philly Italian handshake deals on these properties, right? It's all about network and who you know and your relationships.
I think shout out to Sergio for making these connections happen, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I had a completely different experience as a transplant from Los Angeles to Philly, not knowing anyone or anything. But partner, me wanting and needing to get into real estate investing and him being a local, and we were able to make magic happen. So when we started in multifamily, it was still a good time to buy. We were in the smaller multifamily market, so we weren't competing with REITs. We weren't competing with a lot of larger private equity. These were all off-market deals. So things just came together. And then as we grew and as we learned being in the trenches and then learned the value of scaling up, and as we wanted to make that next step into mid-size multifamily, we weren't finding the deals. And the timing of this was 2016, 2017. And even though we had the investor capital behind us, we weren't finding projects that made sense. And as we were doing the underwriting for acquisitions, Sergio said, well, let me underwrite our current properties to sell and see if we need to instead sell and find something else to go into. And that's where we had the aha moment, because we originally started investing as long-term buy and holds. We were thinking that we would buy these properties and hold them forever, pass them down to our children, our family members' children, and have them as a massive wealth legacy. But seeing how the market was going, where we were in the cycle, and then when Sergio did the underwriting and saw what we could deliver to our investors upon a sale, we did that. And we sold in 2018 and 2019, we sold almost everything. We delivered to our investors 23 to 25% IRR. And then those investors, all of them except, I'm going to say one, stayed with us and put those gains and more into our self-storage acquisition. So the pivot to self-storage happened because we didn't want to go out of state to hunt multifamily, because we just being conservative, we thought there were too many different variables at play there. We didn't have a broad enough network where we felt we had people that we could trust in out of state networks. We just didn't have those connections yet. I think we are starting to develop those connections now, so maybe that will change. And then with multifamily, not being able to find the multifamily assets that would deliver the returns that we personally and our investors were used to getting with our early acquisitions. We learned about self-storage, really dove into it, and learned everything further that we possibly could, and then jumped in. So our acquisition in August of 2019, we were underwriting and making offers on self-storage for a solid year and a half before that. We got outbid a couple times, and then that one ended up being successful. And we are under contract now on another set of 3 properties, actually. So we're going all into the self-storage space. We're very happy with our experience so far, with the returns we've been able to generate, even through COVID, to our investors in the project that we closed on last year. We met our year 2 projections just before year 1. So even with everything going on, all of the technology and business operations that we were able to throw at self-storage allowed us to operate continuously, even through the lockdowns. And storage was considered a storage was kept open when most of the other business shutdowns were happening. So we were all up and running, and even with our rental portfolio, we were showing and turning apartments. Even during all of that shutdown, we just did everything remotely. So that harkens back to our deep roots in technology, in automation, in management, throwing systems as much as possible at things so that we can operate our business really from anywhere with a few trusted boots on the ground. Very long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah, that was a long-winded, question that I asked you. So the answer came out the way. So that is definitely awesome. So coming back to, is that all the self-storage units that we're talking about, that's happening in Philadelphia also, right?
They're in Pennsylvania. So they are in Lancaster County, which is an hour and 15, maybe an hour and a half from here. So again, getting back to our conservative nature, wanting to be able to regularly check in on our assets, because we serve as the GP and the asset manager. So we want locations to be somewhere where we can still easily get to them. So they are close to us. They're essentially, Lancaster is, I would say, call it 2/3 of the way between Philly and Harrisburg. It's definitely the market there is a little over 500,000 as far as population. Where the storage facilities are is definitely tertiary, bordering upon suburbs. It's not urban. The urban markets for self-storage are dominated by REITs. You just can't compete in the numbers in the urban markets. It just doesn't make sense for smaller firms such as ourselves. So we are focusing in on suburbs and tertiary markets. These are very solidly, I would call them tertiary markets. They're in the heart of Amish country, Pennsylvania.
Got it. So when it comes to the underwriting part, can you talk about like what type of self-storage units are you looking for, maybe from, unit counts kind of parts? And is that going to be a class like brand new built, or is it going to be kind of mom and pop type of, self-storage?
Okay. Yeah. These are mom and pops. They are, so the one that we acquired last year had been operated by the family for 2 generations. It was the father had actually, it was a potato distributor. So we're in the heart of agricultural area in central Pennsylvania, right? So it was originally a potato distributor. The father converted it into self-storage in the mid 80s. The son was running it with his wife. So it definitely really perfectly aligned within that mom and pop criteria. They didn't really have any technology as far as operating it. He had a beautiful handwritten ledger where he wrote down all of the tenant payments, all of the incoming and outgoing monies. I mean, it's a work of art, but if you're looking to scale and grow, it was exactly what we wanted, because our focus and our strengths really are in optimizing technology. So what we did with that one was he had a website but didn't know how to access it. So we stood up a website, we implemented a self-storage management platform. We automated the gate and camera functionality. So wherever we are on our phone, we can see who's coming in, who's going out. We optimized the website so that tenants or potential tenants can reserve and move in online, DocuSign for all of that, online payments. So we don't even really need to have someone on site. We do have someone local part-time, 20 hours a week, just to keep an eye on, to do security checks, to be there if there are some interested clientele who want to actually experience a self-storage unit before they decide which size they need. As far as what size or types of units, in this market, the larger sizes we're finding sell better. So we have actually done some conversion. There is a corridor of smaller 5x5 units that just don't rent. And so what we've done is converted them into 5x15s, and those are renting better. There was also an opportunity on this facility. It did not have any temperature control or climate control. So we converted some of our 12 by 20s to be climate control, and that rented very well as well. There was also deferred maintenance on the grounds. Essentially, they had people parking. You can do parking as part of storage, right? RV, truck parking, boats. If you have contractors, we have one of our clients is a large lumber and tree landscaping business, so they have these massive 40-foot trucks that they need to store somewhere. So what we did also to optimize this facility was we repaved the whole grounds. We striped and numbered parking spaces. We were able to create 10 additional parking spaces, which ended up resulting in an extra, I want to say $6,700 a year. So calculating that out at cap rates, that's a great increase to your business value there. Did that answer the question, or did I just go off on a complete other tangent?
No, that's very good, because I kind of wanted to ask you the question about the value add process. You kind of explained it, again, doing
Yes.
adding just more kind of parking spaces and more, space for the, for the people, again, and tailor making, to what people are looking for,
to your market, right? Yeah, because in the more urban markets, a 5x5 will sell. If you've got people who are living in studio apartments and just need some closet space for their off-season storage, that'll sell fine. In the markets where we are, and at least we're finding, I'm not an expert in this at all, right? But this is what we're finding a year and change in, is that in this market where we are, the larger spaces are selling more, and having parking and really just modernizing the operations. So what we're under contract right now to buy, same scenario. It's two partners. They've owned the properties for 12 years, have some basic technology. They have websites, but there's no SEO, there's no optimization there. And they don't have things like tenant insurance or revenue management in place. Mm-hmm. Tenant insurance is a great ancillary income stream. It serves multiple purposes. It sets your tenants at ease that if they have expensive belongings, if they have antique collectibles or anything in there, they're getting extra coverage. The facility also gets a kickback for every policy that we sell. You get a percentage of whatever that monthly policy rate is. So if it's $4 a policy at 300 units a month, that's a nice little extra to add to your business operations. The same thing. So we're applying really many of the same things that we went through with our acquisition last year to these 3 additional ones. So it's a rinse and repeat, and it's also a level up because one of these properties has expansion potential. It's been pre-approved for an expansion that will double the square footage. In the market, there is enough demand to support that expansion based on the supply demand analysis that we have. And also the occupancy on these properties is almost at 100%, and the rent rates are almost 50% under what market is. They're charging, the average is $665 a square foot, and in the market rate are $10 to $12 a square foot. So that's immediate value add right there. We move in, we raise the rents, and we get that expansion underway and add additional units at those market rent rates, and that we're very excited about the project. Yeah.
Awesome. So you're kind of going ahead with the answers, because I wanted to ask you about how you keep the high occupancy. We kind of answered there, but again, coming back to the point, as you mentioned a couple of times, like the softwares that you're using, because those, again, mom and pop kind of properties, self-storage units that they had for maybe 10, 20 years, of course, they're going to be mismanaged, and they will be lacking those type of software. So you mentioned, website
exactly.
And the SEO practices and, the CRMs and everything to keep in place. But when it comes from a marketing standpoint, like how do you go about, because multifamily, you have apartments.com or, place that you can put it out, in the market space, and people are going to find these, units. But how do you go about, marketing the storage units for the potential, people?
Yeah. So storage is a want, not necessarily. I mean, it's not like housing. So the focus on advertising is you can have the most beautiful self-storage facility in the world. If people don't need to store their stuff, they're not going to come to you. So we keep that in mind when we're advertising. We don't throw tons of money out because we really just want to make sure that when people do a search of self-storage near me, we come up. So we throw our money at really at the world according to Google. I mean, that's really all we do. And then so making sure that we show up in Google search results, making sure that our website is optimized so that once people find us, realize that they need storage, find us as the one just down the street, are able to do everything that they need to within a few short clicks, make it absolutely as easy as possible for people to convert once they realize they have that need. That's it. Making sure that we have signage. All of these facilities have good street location and signage. That's important for self-storage, making sure that people can get their moving trucks easily in and out. Or I should say the ones that we're acquiring, some of them don't have great signage. So that's part of our value add proposition, is making sure that it really pops from the street. But yes, as far as from marketing and advertising, we don't go nuts with it because we just make sure that we show up when people need us, that they find out that we're there.
Awesome. Great. So SEO, making sure that you put a lot of work and emphasis onto SEO practices and ranking yourself in a Google search, kind of the main thing, right? Yeah. Good. So again, talking about your personal kind of, direction, moving now from multifamily syndication, you've done these deals. So can you talk about, structuring and, how you're going to be structuring these, self-storage units from, with the, following the, SEC standards. And so how these deals are going to be structured for the passive investors. And maybe you can talk about what is the difference and kind of maybe there's some pros and cons investing, in self-storage.
Pros and cons in self-storage versus multifamily?
Yeah.
Okay. So right now, our offerings right now are 506B. So we're open to accredited and sophisticated. So, and really with our current investor network, people that have been in projects with us before, or just are in our database, we're enjoying being able to keep it open to sophisticated because that's where we both come from as well. I don't think neither one of us were accredited when we started buying. So it's a little bit of extra work in order to stay open to sophisticated investors. Obviously, we can't publicly, put our projects out there. But because of where we came from and because of who we are looking to serve with our family and our friends and people who might not otherwise really be exposed to this type of investing, it's something that we do feel strongly about. So we're continuing to stay in that space. I honestly don't know if our VP of acquisitions has other projects in the pipeline, other off-market acquisitions. Some of those we might keep for accredited investors only, just being completely honest. We'll see. We still do want to be able to offer these opportunities to people who wouldn't meet that criteria, who would be sophisticated. And with the SEC redefining the definition of accredited investors, with that taking place effective December, that might still allow us to go the accredited only route and feel like we are still serving the people that we want to, or providing the opportunity to the people and the types of people that we want to. As far as structuring, I was just trying to remember all of your questions. I'm sorry. As far as structuring the
Sorry
deals.
for these long questions.
No, it's all right. You'll ask them again if I completely miss one. As far as structuring the deals, it's a 75-25 split, traditionally is what we have done. And with us serving as the general partners and then the rest being our limited partners, we do also come in personally ourselves as limited partners. We feel that that is important for our investors to know that we are in the project on their level as well, and that we're not just pulling projects together to capture syndicator fees and then run. So our personal money is always in the projects as well with the rest of our limited partners. Ask me any follow-up questions. Oh, multifamily versus self-storage. Yeah, I'm not finding the numbers in multifamily that meet our criteria. And I'm not quite sure about where our world is going on a broader perspective when it comes to dynamics between property owners and property renters. And so some of the headlines about tenants banding together to not pay rent in some of the larger communities, and that sort of grassroots movements has me a little bit nervous, I'll be honest. We've always come at things very conservatively. This is my financial future at stake. This is my daughter's financial future at stake. And so we, for right now, we're very happy with going in self-storage, and we will pivot when we see that, when we see a reason to do so. That's just me. I don't have all the answers. That's a very personal decision, I think, for each of us. But that's where we are right now. And certainly we are still managing properties in the city proper in Philadelphia and in some of the suburbs outside. And the current dynamic right now in the city is tenuous. And I'm just hopeful that once we get past elections, things will settle one way or another. Just that they'll just settle, and we'll know what we're going to be doing for the next 4 years. So we're kind of just riding things out right now for those properties that we're managing. I'm selling what I can and going all into self-storage in the markets that we're in. We're not looking to be anywhere close to urban markets. We're focusing on the suburbs and the tertiary rural markets, which I feel more comfortable with as well. Right now, our plan is to stay relatively local. Our VP of acquisitions has deep connections along the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic corridor. So we are sourcing deals in those regions, maybe going down to Delaware, maybe some upstate New York. But right now, these and the immediate next couple ones in the deal flow, it looks like it's going to be middle Pennsylvania, maybe some Delaware regions, maybe some rural New York. But I probably would go Delaware before I go New York, honestly.
Got it. So again, like, I love the fact that you said you're making those personal decisions. And I'm sure, like, I came across a few people, more than a few people myself, that been on a show prior to yourself, and they're making kind of the same transition, going from multifamily into storage units, or it's either, mobile home parks, something in that nature. Again, because of what's currently happening in multifamily syndication, industry.
Exactly.
And it's very hard to find deals, and the way as we spoke on the right, it just doesn't make any sense, at the current conditions. And maybe they're gonna do exactly the same as you. They're gonna just wait it out and see what's gonna happen in the near future. So
we were looking at mobile home parks as well, and my family has land in the middle of nowhere in Missouri that they're probably going to be developing. It was kind of a primitive campground, and they'll be developing, it sounds like, into a manufactured home park. But so we went as far as to buying our travel trailer, and are experiencing from a consumer perspective. We're like, okay, well, we can crunch the numbers and we can read the theory. Let's experience it on the other side and see. And we've been amazed. We spent 6 weeks in Cape May, New Jersey this summer, and just seeing the clientele and seeing how the service in that market has changed. I mean, it's not what I had this idea in my head of what a campground, or what a trailer campground, or what camping might be, or what mobile home parks might be. And it's amazing to see what they are now and how far they have come. I think the same thing is what we're seeing and what we're applying in self-storage, as far as customer service and amenities and what you would expect as far as technology, operations, all of that. So from a consumer perspective, we're we're checking that out, but just with the deal flow that we have in self-storage, we're focusing on that for right now. But we were similarly looking at manufactured mobile home parks, alternative travel, right? Because if these travel restrictions continue, families still need to get away. We still have kids that are crawling up the walls and need something to do and somewhere to go to let them run. So so looking at all those opportunities as well. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's good. Like mobile home parks is one, again, as I said, maybe it's one of the options that you're going to be adding on to your current existing portfolio. And again, because of the limited supply, you know, there's like probably, I spoke with some people and they're saying it's only 10 new properties, you know, like land kind of developments when they
landlocked.
Yeah, exactly. Land lots. It's just the number he said is just like 10 a year new coming up, and there's a lot of redevelopment going again with the existing, you know, mobile home parks where they kind of tearing everything apart and building brand new A-class multifamily, you know. So there's a very limited supply, and again, it's a great space to be in because a lot of people again kind of, you know, they're renting brand new Class A. And again, what's happening with the current market conditions, some of those people are going to be going and renting in a Class B and C. Maybe some of those will be going D. But kind of mobile home space, you know, it's kind of, you know, you still get the maybe front and the backyard. There's some space you can run around. Your kids can run around. There's fence, and you know, you still like it's a very cheap, you know, for the people to rent.
And the technology behind the new builds is amazing. So Sergio particularly geeks out about this because he's a tech geek. So seeing what the designers can fit into 24 feet is amazing. And the new technology as far as materials, right? So everything is as absolutely lightweight as possible, multifunctional design, convertible design. I mean, all of that sort of stuff is really exciting. The price point on some of the top of the line models obviously are still pretty high, but as that technology gets more mainstream, that's going to bring the prices down. It's going to make it more affordable for us middle of the road sorts of folks, and that's really exciting. We fall down YouTube rabbit holes looking at different trailers and manufactured home designs and all that sort of stuff. Complete tangent. So many tangents today. Sorry, let's get back to your question.
No, that's very fine. I'm happy that we covered that because again, that's something that you're paying attention to, you know, investing in the future. So that is definitely awesome. One thing that I wanted to ask you again, as mentioned here in the bio, you kind of self-developed the property management for this. So was that for syndication deals? Because you mentioned that you're still actively, you know, managing the deals, some of the deals in Philadelphia area. So how do you go about with the storage units? Are you going to be managing those yourself? You have vertically integrated company, or are you having third-party management?
We do it all ourselves. So we did a year ago, we're a family shop. And so a year ago, we hired my sister-in-law, my brother's older sister. She was a title agent in her previous career. Couple things happened. She needed a change, and I couldn't continue to do all of the leasing and maintenance management. And we were in the midst of closing and onboarding the storage facility. So we brought her in. She is now master of everything tenant facing. She wrangles the contractors. She's amazing. Her attention to detail impresses me daily. So she handles all that side of things from our property management side of the shop. And then we have a part-time manager for the existing self-storage. For the additional 3 that we're going to be closing on before the end of the year, we have someone lined up to serve essentially as a regional director, a regional manager, because the total of 4 will be within 20 miles of one another. So they're very much in the same network. And this person that we have lined up to be regional manager will be overseeing all 4 from a umbrella scale. They will also be working with our existing part-time at the I guess historical facility. And so we see the 2 of them kind of working in tandem across the 4 sites. Did that answer your question about how we manage everything? And then Sergio and I will continue to do, so Sergio will be doing his underwriting, his analysis, his strategic are we going to keep going this way? Are we going to throw in some mobile home parks, or where are we going next? Keeping his eye on the future. I will be from a higher level perspective, working with the regional manager and serving as intermediary with our investors. And then our VP of acquisitions is sending us the deal flow. So
nice.
yeah.
Nice. Good. So if you don't mind me, again, last two questions that I have. So first question is just an addition to existing question, which is, like what's happening in multifamily with tenants in place? These are people, and of course in self-storage you have things, maybe some valuable things, in the storage units. But how do you go about with the rent collections? I mean, do you have a problem with that? Because there's a lot of, multifamily, syndicators they're talking about, it's kind of an issue right now during the COVID time. So is that a problem for you personally in the self-storage?
In self-storage, no. In multifamily, for us personally, no. We had across our 60 doors, we had one set of tenants where they were roommates. They were both in the hospitality industry. We proactively reached out to all of our tenants when COVID first hit to say, here are the resources that are available for you. Here's where we stand. Rent is still due. Mortgage is still due. Rent is still due. But we collect first and last when tenants move in. So we said, so anyone that reached out to us proactively and said, I think I might need some help, we were open to developing some sort of payment plan. We had a payment plan created just even before we heard from anyone. We decided, what we could do, what we could offer, how we could work with tenants. We only had one set of tenants that needed 1 month of breathing room for them to kind of figure out alternative finances. In their scenario, we had 2 months that they had prepaid when they moved in. We had their security deposit and we had their last month's rent. So we applied their prepayment of last month. That got them an extra 30 days for them to figure things out. And then we were fine. So knock on all the wood. And I will credit that also to our commitment to have relationships with our tenants, right? I was a renter when I moved to Philly. I had that experience of being on the other side. And so taking that time up front when our renters first move in so that they feel like they are renting from people too, and they don't feel ashamed or too afraid to call us and say, we're struggling. We want to stay in the apartment. We want to figure something out. And keeping those lines of communication open. And now to credit Anna, our leasing agent, having those conversations before people move in, and we screen the heck out of people before they move in, and we set those expectations up front in a firm and professional and still personal way, but making sure that communication is very clear from the beginning of the relationship so that there are no surprises down the road. To self-storage, we have not had any issues with, we inherited a few delinquent accounts when we purchased that property last year because the previous operator didn't operate it like a business and had a massive big heart, and so let people stay for extended lengths of time without paying. Happily though, in self-storage, we have different laws that guide our relationship. And so it's a settlement in Pennsylvania. At 20 days past payment, you can deny them access to their belongings. So our system, because it's all automated, at 20 days past due, their gate code is shut off, and we overlock their units. So if they really want their stuff, they need to come in with some heavy duty. They need to jump the fence and come in with some heavy duty tools. And I have had a couple that have done that.
And then
happens.
The police gets involved. Yeah.
And then the police get involved, and we have cameras, and everything is date and time stamped. So we did the same thing when COVID first hit. We waived late fees. Late fees are another great, I hate saying great, but they are another income stream, right? If people just don't realize that rent is due on the first, it's due on the first, it's due on the first. And if it's not paid on the first, then you're going to be paying a little bit extra for that flexibility.
Yeah. It's same as credit cards, bank credit cards. If you're late, you're late. You have to pay up the fee. So it's,
Yep.
Yeah.
And with our residential tenants, we do have the capability to pay with credit card. There is a pretty steep processing fee, but if our tenants are really in a pinch, paying the processing fee to put it on a credit card versus paying our late fee, which is much higher, I tell them to do that. I mean, I'm not an advocate of living off of your credit cards, but if you're saving yourself $70 by doing that to get through a month, then that option is there for our tenants as well.
Got it.
Hopefully I
Good,
answered the
good.
question
Oh
about.
yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did, of course.
Okay.
So that is awesome. I really appreciate you, giving all these wide answers, wide answers. And of course, I'm asking you those wide questions. But I mean, there's a tremendous amount of value for the people who are looking to learn about self-storage and the reasons they should be starting either their own personal business in self-storage or investing, with you as an option, in one of those deals, and the reasons why should they go and invest in these deals.
Mm-hmm.
So that is awesome. I really appreciate you for all the information that you provided today. And again, as I mentioned, last question that I have, again, you're building your personal business now, transitioning, doing the self-storage, again, maybe mobile home parks in the future, and you have the whiteboard and you have your personal kind of things in place. Why do you want to build a business? For the, specific reasons. And of course, there's family, different things. But let's talk about the legacy part. And is there a legacy for you? And maybe what is the kind of legacy part that you're building the business for?
I love seeing. So I have a daughter. I think I will stop with the daughter. I think I'll quit while I'm ahead. So there is a legacy at play there. There is also remembering our roots, and my husband's parents being a tailor and a seamstress from Italy, and my grandfather working in the steel factories, and my other grandfather being an auto mechanic. My grandmothers both didn't work outside the home. They raised the children. So remembering where we came from and being able to offer to our family, to our friends, and honestly, any of our newer investors who came to us have become friends because of the approach that we take to investing together. It's not just collecting your checks quarterly. This is serving a broader purpose of your family's financial well-being and your overall goals and life journey. So there certainly is legacy at play there. I want to be able to offer my daughter enough that she can explore life the way that I was able to growing up. So a big part of that also is having whole life insurance policies in place for her as soon as she was born, having annuities in place so that there are other investment vehicles at play. We're not just in real estate. Sergio also has cryptocurrency, and he's also in the market, and we have our different life insurance and annuity policies. We leverage qualified retirement plans in order to maximize how we direct those different funds. And we share all of that information with our family, with our friends, with our investors, because real estate investing is just part of it. For us, it's a very big part. For our limited investors, maybe it's a smaller part of the overall whole. So everything that we are learning and that we are striving towards, and any changes that we're making in our own personal finances or strategy, we share that with the rest of our network as well. Did I quite answer your question? Not sure. But so yes, there's definitely a legacy focus at play. I also am a member of the Real Estate Invest Her community, which is all about empowering women in real estate. I feel very passionately about that as a woman in real estate myself. I definitely noticed a difference in hunting properties on my own versus when I had Sergio at my side. And so anything that I can do to partner with, encourage fellow women in their journey in real estate towards financial freedom, towards being able to provide for their families, because at the end of the day, the honest truth is that so much more of that family commitment falls on the woman's shoulders. So being able to give women in particular a little bit more of financial windfall or just flexibility, right? So that we can be home with our babies when they need us and still have some passive income coming in to balance out all the other rest of the demands on us.
Yeah.
Another long-winded answer to your question.
No, that is great. I love it. There's tremendous value in everything that you say. And again, Invest Her Network, you cannot put enough emphasis on that. How is that important, again, for the women investors? And I know I'm going to get the number wrong, but I think the last time I checked in with, again, a person that's, been on the show, and she said there's 5,000, I think, plus women who are actively, kind of networking with each other and, talking about real estate. And there's, of course, the capital raising part in there too, and, deal sourcing part. So it's a tremendous, network for any lady that wants to get involved with real estate investing. So definitely great that you're part of that too. So yeah, but at the same time, look, you opened up my head to all these different questions that I still want to ask. But again, maybe we can keep this for another episode, as you mentioned, the crypto and the insurance.
We'll do a part two.
Yep. Yeah, of course we have to, because I think people will ask us. People will be like, let's talk about the crypto and the other options, and maybe we can talk about the mobile home parks, because maybe by then you will have these, in the portfolio as well, so we can cover, or just something that you're looking for in the future, So that will be really awesome.
Yeah, I would be remiss in not mentioning also that something else that we are actively in talks with is buying small business. And I don't know if you've had any other speakers come on and talk about that, but specifically for real estate, when we looked at our numbers and what we spend outsourcing to third-party subcontractors, we had the conversation about we need to buy a business instead. Find a licensed plumber, find an HVAC shop that they're really great at doing the work, but don't know how to optimize their business. That's what we bring. And so either partnering or finding smaller operators that are looking to be acquired and to grow their business, but don't necessarily maybe have those capabilities. So that's something else that we're really we're in talks with an owner operator now about an outright sale. So that would also, I'll add that to the index for part two.
That's a message for the people who are watching and having any, businesses like that, and they may be willing to sell them at the, current time. So awesome. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of value information that's been provided today for you guys and girls. Maybe in particular, because I love seeing women personally getting involved with real estate business. And, there is a lot of those very professional, same as you, who are building this business and building the legacy and impacting people and the communities and, passive investors, in a great way. So one thing that I wanted to ask you guys and girls before we're going to go, if you share this episode with a friend of yours, and maybe, if you share that episode with a lady that is looking to learn more about real estate investing, it's either from active or passive side, how do you invest in a self-storage units or mobile home parks or multifamily, you can always get in contact with Corinn personally. And there's, of course, going to be LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and the website that's called hearthfireholdings.com. So make sure to go and have these conversations and ask questions. How, Corinn, how are you able to do all these things, as an investor in real estate space? So make sure to share this episode with a friend. And Corinn, again, big thank you again for being today on the show. I mean, tremendous amount of value and information. So I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you. I'm glad we were able to connect.
Thank you. So again, guys, share the episode. And as always, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.